Welcome back to the Forum at ESPNLosAngeles.com. Kamenetsky brothers Brian and Andy, joined by ESPN LA 710's Drew Belzer. Guys, it is no secret that the Lakers have a few older players on their team, and as such, roster management's is going to be one of the big issues throughout the season. Last year, there were some grumblings that Mike Brown didn't exactly kind of get guys, maybe a little too much pedal to the metal at different times of the season. Guys kind of rebelled against that about midway through the year. So far, we've seen Pau Gasol miss a game. We've seen Kobe Bryant miss a game. Steve Nash playing limited minutes on Wednesday. Obviously, Dwight Howard hasn't played yet. What do you guys think so far of how Mike Brown has handled his veteran roster, Drew?
Yeah, I think he's been great so far. Last year, Kobe Bryant averaged 39 minutes a game last year. That is way too many. By contrast, Steve Nash, 31 minutes a game in Phoenix, 8 less minutes per game. That's huge, especially for guys entering their 17th season in the league. That's going to be really important. Again, these guys are in their mid to upper 30s. It is a long season, 82 games plus the playoffs. It is important that these guys are rested. I would much rather have them miss a game in Milwaukee in March and to have fresh legs in Miami in June. These guys need to rest.
Well, it's hard to tell exactly what Mike Brown's approach is going to be for the season because on one hand, like you said, Brian, Pau Gasol was allowed to miss a game because Mike Brown sensed there was some fatigue coming on. But on the other hand, he actually held a practice the day of a game earlier in the season, and by all accounts, he has been practicing
Steve Nash,
these guys
over
really
the course
hard.
Of now 17 years, admitted that was the first time he'd ever seen that, a 3-hour practice on a game day.
So at the very least, those signs are fuzzy. And I asked Mike Brown about that, and he said, I'm basically paraphrasing, if I can get these guys through this right now and it's uncomfortable for them now, hopefully it won't be, later on in the season and hopefully, like Drew said, in June. So a little bit of mixed signs about how he's going to approach it during the season.
Yeah, and you see it because, you talk about the practice on the game day, 3 hours and whatever, but he's also given them 3 days off at this point through the preseason, including 2 days off following horrendous losses, both times to the Jazz. And so they've had a little time to rest. They've had some time to recuperate. But like Drew was talking about, Mike Brown is going to have to be very careful about how he doles out minutes. When you look at Steve Nash and Kobe Bryant and Pau Gasol, you're talking about three guys that between them, when you go regular season and playoffs, have 123,000 minutes under their belt. That doesn't include Pau's international time. He's obviously has a longer and more extensive international career than anybody else in the roster. It doesn't include Antoine Jamison, who's also entering. He got a lot of mileage on
billionth
those tires.
Season.
Exactly, give or take. And so it's going to be a concern. I just as soon have them get their practice in now if it means, like you say, Drew, they can rest a little bit later. But it's something they're going to have to watch.
Yeah, and Mike Brown is going to have to learn from one of his mentors, Greg Popovich. He's going to have to Popovich some of his games, and that means resting some of his guys for complete games, maybe even 2 or 3. Popovich famous for resting Duncan, Parker, Ginobili for games at a time. And that's what I think Mike Brown needs to do with Kobe, with Nash. Again, you can take some games off. It is far more important. It is far more impressive to go 82-0. Is that impressive? No. You want to, in the regular season? No. You want to go 16-12 in the postseason. That gets you a ring. That gets you a championship. That gets you a parade. 82-0 in the regular season does not.
You think he'll do it, Andy?
I don't know. It's really hard to say because the value in doing it, like you were saying, Drew, is obvious, particularly with a team that's collectively as old as it is. But this team wasn't exactly young last season, and they were going through a breakneck pace with the lockout and games on top of games on top of games. And Mike Brown still played Kobe high minutes, Pau Gasol high minutes, Andrew Bynum when he was a Laker.
The team wasn't as good. In fairness, he had fewer good players
but it was very
put on the floor.
Sure, but it was very, very clearly catching up to those guys, particularly Pau Gasol, who we've seen a pattern of down the stretch of seasons and going into the playoffs, fatigue catching up. I wonder if Mike Brown will do it because it just hasn't seemed to be in his nature.
Well, I do think that it's interesting. John Hollinger, when he put out his computer projections of the Western Conference, freaked out some Laker fans who already wonder whether or not those computers hate the Lakers anyway.
They do.
Saying that the Lakers are going to finish 4th in the conference. And one reason that he had it was because they really are built for the playoffs because of what you're talking about, Drew, the idea that guys are going to have to play shorter minutes and things like that. So I think if he does it, there's a chance the Lakers won't win as many games. But this is not a team that needs to have home court advantage in the playoffs. They should be just fine playing on anybody's floor. And if they're at full strength, it means a lot more than it would if they were, say, on their home floor, but everybody was hurt. That's all the time we have on the Forum. For Drew Belzer and Andy Kamenetsky, I'm Brian Kamenetsky.